I never thought my garage would become the most expensive real estate dispute in Bozeman, Montana. But here we are, standing in 6 inches of fresh snow while a tow truck hauls away the HOA president's Mercedes SUV. Let me back up a bit. My name is Peter Yates, and I bought my house on Maple Ridge Drive about 3 years ago. It is a nice property with a detached heated garage that I barely used since I work from home, and my truck sits outside most of the time anyway. The garage is massive, easily fitting 4 vehicles with room to spare, and the previous owner had installed radiant floor heating and insulation that could keep it toasty even when temperatures dropped to -20 degrees. The Maple Ridge Homeowners Association was run by a woman named Patricia Thompson, a 52-year-old real estate agent with that signature Karen haircut, the asymmetrical bob with blonde highlights that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager," from a mile away. She had that perpetually pinched expression, like she was always smelling something unpleasant. And she took her position as HOA president more seriously than most people take actual elected office. It started innocently enough last October. Patricia knocked on my door on a crisp autumn afternoon, wearing her usual outfit of expensive athleisure, where despite never actually exercising, clutching a clipboard like it was the Declaration of Independence. "Peter, I need to discuss something with you," she said, not waiting for an invitation before stepping into my foyer. "The HOA board has been reviewing the community facilities, and we have a proposal." I closed the door behind her, already feeling a headache coming on. Every conversation with Patricia felt like walking through a minefield. "What kind of proposal?" "Your garage," she said, gesturing vaguely in its direction. "It is significantly larger than standard, and we understand you barely use it. Several board members need heated storage for their vehicles during winter, and we would like to rent the space." I raised an eyebrow. "Rent my garage?" "Yes, the HOA would pay you, of course. We are thinking $200 per month per vehicle. We have 4 board members who need space, so that would be $800 monthly from November through March. 5 months, $4,000 total." The offer actually sounded reasonable at first. I really did not use the garage much, and $4,000 for basically doing nothing seemed like easy money. Plus, saying no to Patricia usually resulted in her finding creative ways to make life difficult through HOA regulations and nitpicking. "Who would be parking there?" I asked. "Myself, Linda Richardson, Margaret Foster, and Susan Whitmore. All board members, all responsible individuals. We would only access the garage during reasonable hours, and naturally, we would provide you with insurance information for all vehicles." I thought about it for a moment. "Let me see a written contract first. I want everything spelled out clearly, payment terms, access hours, liability, all of it." Patricia's expression tightened slightly, like she was not used to people actually asking for documentation. "Of course. I will have something drawn up by the end of the week." True to her word, Patricia returned that Friday with a contract. I read through it carefully, and it seemed straightforward enough. Monthly payments of $800 due on the 1st of each month, November through March. Access hours between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. The HOA would provide proof of insurance for all vehicles. Either party could terminate with 30 days' notice. I signed it, and Patricia practically beamed with satisfaction. Looking back, that should have been my first warning sign. Patricia never looked happy unless she was getting something over on someone. November rolled around, and on the 1st of the month, the 4 HOA board members showed up to park their vehicles. Patricia had her white Mercedes GLS, Linda drove a Lexus RX, Margaret had a BMW X5, and Susan owned an Audi Q7. All expensive SUVs that clearly benefited from heated storage during Montana winters. I had cleaned out the garage and even marked 4 parking spots with tape on the floor. The women seemed pleased with the arrangement, though Patricia still managed to find something to criticize. "The lighting could be better," she said, squinting up at the perfectly adequate LED fixtures. "And we will need you to keep the temperature at least 65 degrees. "The contract says heated storage," I replied. "It does not specify a temperature. I keep it at 55, which is more than enough to prevent any damage to your vehicles." Patricia's lips pursed. "We will discuss this at the next board meeting." I let it go, not wanting to start an argument on day one. The first payment of $800 arrived via check on November 3rd, which I promptly deposited. Everything seemed fine. December came, and so did Montana winter in full force. We got hammered with snow, the kind of heavy, persistent snowfall that buried everything under thick white blankets and made you grateful for heated spaces. My garage became a little oasis of warmth, and I noticed the HOA ladies visiting their vehicles more frequently, sometimes just sitting in them for a while with the engines running. On December 1st, I checked my mailbox for the monthly payment. Nothing. I figured it might be delayed due to the Thanksgiving holiday, so I waited a few days. By December 5th, still nothing. I texted Patricia. "Hi Patricia, just checking on this month's garage payment. Have not received it yet." Her response came 3 hours later. "We'll drop it off soon." Soon turned into a week, then 2 weeks. I texted again, then I called. Patricia's responses became increasingly vague and dismissive. "I have been busy. The HOA treasury is being audited. You will get it eventually." By December 20th, I was annoyed. I went to the garage one evening and found all 4 vehicles parked inside, warm and cozy, while my truck sat outside covered in snow and ice. I took photos, then sent Patricia a formal email. "Patricia, per our contract, payment was due December 1st. It is now the 20th, and I have not received the $800 owed. Please remit payment immediately, or I will be forced to take action per the terms of our agreement." Her response was almost immediate this time. "Peter, do not threaten me. The HOA is going through a budget review, and non-essential payments are being delayed. You will receive your money when the review is complete." Non-essential. My blood pressure spiked reading those words. They were using my property, my electricity, to heat the space, and they considered payment non-essential. I called my buddy Marcus, who happens to be a lawyer, though he specializes in criminal defense rather than contract law. Still, he knew more than I did. "Read me the contract," he said over the phone. I did, word for word. "Okay, so they are in breach. You have grounds to terminate immediately and demand they remove their vehicles. The 30-day notice clause does not apply when there is a material breach like non-payment. What if they refuse? Then you call a tow truck and have them removed from your property. They are essentially trespassing at that point. But send one more certified letter first, clearly stating they are in breach, and have 72 hours to remove vehicles and pay all outstanding amounts, or you will take action." I drafted the letter that night, printed it the next morning, and sent it certified mail, requiring a signature. I also hand-delivered a copy to Patricia's house 3 doors down. She answered in a fuzzy bathrobe despite it being 2 in the afternoon, her hair in curlers. "What is this?" she demanded, snatching the envelope. "Formal notice that you are in breach of contract. You have 72 hours to pay what you owe and remove all vehicles, or I am having them towed." Patricia's face turned an impressive shade of red. "You would not dare. Do you have any idea what the HOA can do to you? We can fine you, put liens on your property, make your life absolutely miserable." For what? I asked calmly. I am not the one breaking a contract. You use my property, you pay me. Simple as that. This is ridiculous. We are the HOA board. We manage this entire neighborhood. $800 is pocket change and you are acting like we robbed you. If it is pocket change, then pay me. She slammed the door in my face. The 72 hours passed. Christmas came and went. No payment arrived and all 4 vehicles remained parked in my garage. On December 28th, I called Big Sky Towing, a local company I had used before when someone blocked my driveway. I need 4 vehicles towed from my property, I told the dispatcher. All at once. Yep. They are trespassing. I have documentation. We can have 2 trucks there in an hour. This is going to cost them, though. After hours holiday rate plus storage fees. Not my problem. The tow trucks arrived at 3 p.m. on a gray, freezing afternoon. I met them at the garage with copies of my contract, my breach notice, and photos showing the timeline of events. The drivers, 2 grizzled guys named Dave and Rick, looked over everything. You are covered legally, Dave said. We will hook them up. I opened the garage and stood back. The sound of the tow truck's hydraulic lifts was music to my ears. They started with Patricia's Mercedes, lifting the front wheels and securing it to the flatbed. That is when Patricia came running out of her house, literally running in flip-flops through the snow, screaming like someone was murdering her firstborn. What are you doing? Stop. You cannot do this. Dave, completely unfazed, continued working. Madam, these vehicles are on private property without permission. Owner requested removal. I have permission. We have a contract. Had a contract, I corrected. Which you violated. I gave you notice. You ignored it. Now your car is being towed. Patricia turned to me, her face contorted with rage. You are going to regret this. The HOA will bury you in fines. We will force you to sell. We will make you wish you never moved to this neighborhood. Threaten me all you want, Patricia. You owe me $1,600 now. $800 for December and $800 for January, since we are already into the next billing period. The commotion had attracted attention. Linda Richardson arrived, then Margaret Foster and Susan Whitmore. All 3 women started shouting at once, creating a cacophony of indignant screeching. This is illegal. We are calling the police. You will pay for the towing fees. Call the police, I said. Please do. I would love to have them document your trespassing. Susan actually did pull out her phone and dial. Within 15 minutes, a Bozeman Police Department cruiser pulled up. Officer Jenkins, a patient-looking guy in his 40s, stepped out and surveyed the scene. Someone want to tell me what is going on. Everyone started talking at once. Officer Jenkins held up a hand. One at a time. Sir, you are the property owner. Yes, officer. Peter Yates. This is my house, my garage. I handed him my driver's license and property deed, which I had grabbed from my house. And these vehicles were being stored here under a rental contract. The HOA board members stopped paying rent 2 months ago. I provided written notice of breach and a deadline to remove vehicles. They ignored it, so I called for towing. I handed him copies of everything. The contract, my notices, the payment records showing the last payment in November, my emails and texts requesting payment. Officer Jenkins read through everything carefully while the 4 women continued protesting in the background. Finally, he handed the documents back to me. This looks like a civil contract dispute, but the property owner has the right to remove vehicles from his property, especially after providing notice. The towing is legal. He turned to Patricia. Madam, if you have a dispute about the contract, you will need to take it to small claims court. But right now, these vehicles are being legally removed. Patricia looked like she might explode. This is discrimination. He is targeting us because we are HOA board members." Officer Jenkins' expression remained neutral. "It sounds like he is targeting you because you stopped paying rent. That is not discrimination. Now, I suggest everyone calm down and handle this through proper legal channels." The tow trucks finished loading all 4 vehicles. Dave handed Patricia a business card. "Your vehicle is at our impound lot on Industrial Drive. You can retrieve it once you pay the towing and storage fees." "How much?" Patricia demanded. $350 for the tow, plus $50 per day storage starting tomorrow." $350. That is highway robbery, Dave shrugged. "Holiday rates. Take it up with your friend here who did not pay his rent." The trucks drove off with all 4 luxury SUVs secured. The women stood in my driveway, shivering and furious. Officer Jenkins got back in his cruiser and left after confirming there were no further disturbances. "You have not heard the end of this," Patricia hissed at me. "Board meeting tomorrow night, 7 p.m. You are required to attend." "Am I?" I asked. "Because last time I checked, board meetings were for board members. Homeowners can attend when their violations are being discussed." "What violations?" Patricia's smile was venomous. "We will find some." She and her posse stormed off. I went back inside, poured myself a bourbon, and tried to relax. My phone started buzzing almost immediately with texts from various neighbors who had heard about the incident. Most were supportive, a few were neutral, and 1 or 2 suggested I should have just worked it out with Patricia. The next evening, I showed up at the HOA meeting held in Patricia's oversized living room. About 15 homeowners were present, more than usual. Word had spread about our dispute, and people were curious. Patricia called the meeting to order with all the gravitas of a Supreme Court justice. "We have a serious matter to address tonight. Peter Yates has violated multiple HOA regulations and has acted in bad faith against board members." "What regulations?" I interrupted. Patricia shot me a withering look. "You are not recognized to speak. This is my violation hearing, apparently." "I think I should be allowed to speak." One of the other homeowners, a guy named Tom Prentice who had lived in the neighborhood for decades, spoke up. "Let him talk, Patricia. What is he accused of?" Patricia consulted her clipboard. "Failure to maintain landscaping standards, specifically allowing weeds to grow in flower beds during summer. Parking a commercial vehicle on the street overnight. Creating a nuisance by operating loud equipment before 8 a.m. I almost laughed. "Those are all completely false. My landscaping is immaculate. I do not own a commercial vehicle, and I have never used loud equipment early in the morning. You are making things up because I had your cars towed." "I have photographic evidence," Patricia declared, producing a folder. She passed around photos that were clearly not of my property. The landscaping photo showed a different house number. The commercial vehicle was a plumber's van that belonged to my neighbor 2 houses down who worked nights and parked there legally. The noise complaint had no photo at all, just a written statement from Patricia herself. Tom Prentice looked at the photos and frowned. "Patricia, this landscaping photo shows 1847 Maple Ridge. Peter lives at 1823, and that van belongs to the Martinez family." Patricia snatched the photos back. "There must have been a mix-up in documentation. Or you are retaliating against him for a legitimate contract dispute," Tom said. "Which is not what HOA boards are supposed to do." Other homeowners murmured in agreement. Patricia's face reddened. "The board has voted to fine Peter Yates $2,000 for various violations." "The board?" Linda Richardson looked confused. "Patricia, we did not vote on anything." "I took an emergency vote via email," Patricia snapped. "I never got an email," Margaret Foster added. Susan Whitmore nodded in agreement. The meeting devolved into chaos. It turned out Patricia had unilaterally decided to fine me without actual board approval, which violated the HOA's own bylaws. Tom Prentice, who was apparently more familiar with those bylaws than Patricia wanted, called for a vote of no confidence in Patricia's leadership. All in favor of removing Patricia Thompson as HOA president for abuse of power and retaliation against a homeowner. 12 hands went up out of 15 homeowners present. The board members, clearly tired of Patricia's antics, voted with the majority. Patricia stood up, trembling with rage. "You cannot do this. I have been president for 6 years. This neighborhood would fall apart without me." "The neighborhood will be fine," Tom said calmly. "Linda, are you willing to serve as interim president until we hold proper elections?" Linda Richardson, who seemed like a reasonable person without Patricia's megalomania, nodded. "Yes, I can do that." Patricia gathered her things and stormed out of her own house, going upstairs and slamming a door. The meeting continued without her, and the first order of business was addressing the contract dispute. "Peter, you are still owed $1,600, correct?" Linda asked. "Correct." $800 for December, $800 for January. "The HOA treasury can cover that. I will write you a check tonight." Linda pulled out the HOA checkbook. "I apologize for how this was handled. Patricia should have ensured payment on time." "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." "However," Linda continued, "the contract is obviously terminated at this point. We will make other arrangements for vehicle storage." "Understood." Linda wrote the check and handed it to me. $1,600. Finally. The meeting wrapped up shortly after, with various homeowners coming up to shake my hand and apologize for Patricia's behavior. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, I received a letter from an attorney representing Patricia Thompson personally, not the HOA. She was suing me for illegal seizure of property, emotional distress, and defamation to the tune of $50,000. I immediately called Marcus. "Patricia is suing me." "For what?" I read him the letter. Marcus groaned. "This is a frivolous lawsuit. She has no grounds." "You had every legal right to tow those vehicles, but you will still need to respond and possibly get your own attorney. I can refer you to someone who handles civil litigation." He connected me with Angela Morrison, a sharp civil litigator who reviewed my case and agreed to represent me. Her initial consultation fee was reasonable, and she was confident we would win. "This is classic SLAPP territory," Angela explained. "Strategic lawsuit against public participation. She is suing you to punish and intimidate you for exercising your legal rights. Montana has anti-SLAPP provisions. We can probably get this dismissed and recover your attorney fees." "How long will it take?" "Few months, maybe. Courts are slow." The lawsuit dragged on through February and into March. Patricia, apparently having too much time and money on her hands, kept filing motions and amendments, each more ridiculous than the last. She claimed the towing had caused her severe anxiety that required therapy. She claimed I had publicly humiliated her at the HOA meeting, even though she humiliated herself. She even tried to claim the garage contract was signed under duress, which was laughable since she had initiated the whole arrangement. Meanwhile, the rest of the HOA board members retrieved their vehicles from impound within a few days. Linda, Margaret, and Susan all apologized personally and paid their share of what was owed without argument. Patricia, however, left her Mercedes in impound for 2 weeks, racking up $700 in storage fees, apparently thinking the towing company would just give up and release it. They did not. She eventually paid, screaming at everyone involved the entire time. In March, we finally got our court date for a hearing on my motion to dismiss Patricia's lawsuit. The courtroom was small, just a county civil court, but Angela was prepared with binders of evidence. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Harriet Vance, listened to Patricia's attorney make his case. He was a young guy, probably fresh out of law school, and he seemed uncomfortable with the weakness of his arguments. "Your Honor, my client suffered significant harm from Mr. Yates' actions. She was forced to pay towing fees, was publicly humiliated, and experienced emotional distress requiring professional help." Judge Vance looked at him over her glasses. "Counselor, your client stopped paying rent on a storage agreement, ignored breach notices, and had her vehicle legally towed from private property. Where is the wrongdoing on Mr. Yates' part? The manner in which he handled it was aggressive and unnecessary. He could have been more accommodating. He sent multiple notices over several weeks," Angela interjected. "He gave every opportunity for resolution. The court has copies of all communications. Mr. Yates was extraordinarily patient." Judge Vance reviewed the documents. "I tend to agree, Miss Morrison, you filed an anti-SLAPP motion." "Yes, Your Honor. This lawsuit is clearly retaliatory. Miss Thompson is abusing the court system to punish Mr. Yates for enforcing a legitimate contract." The judge nodded slowly. "I am inclined to grant the motion. Mr. Yates acted within his legal rights. Miss Thompson's claims are without merit. The lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice." Patricia, sitting behind her attorney, gasped audibly. "What? No, you cannot just dismiss it." "Madam, I just did," Judge Vance said firmly. "Furthermore, under Montana's anti-SLAPP statute, you are responsible for Mr. Yates' attorney fees and costs. That will be determined at a separate hearing, but I am guessing it will be several $1,000s. Patricia's attorney looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Patricia herself looked stunned, her face cycling through various shades of red and purple. "This is not over," she hissed as we left the courtroom. "I will appeal." "Good luck with that," Angela said cheerfully. "Appeals courts love frivolous cases. Really gives them something to mock in their written opinions." Patricia did not appeal. Her attorney probably talked her out of it. We had a follow-up hearing in April to determine attorney fees, and the judge awarded me $4,200, the full amount of Angela's fees and costs. Patricia was ordered to pay within 30 days. She did, but she mailed the check with a note that just said, "I hope you choke on it." I framed the note. It sits in my home office as a reminder that some people never learn. The spring HOA elections happened in May. Linda Richardson ran for president officially and won by a landslide. Patricia did not even run. In fact, Patricia put her house up for sale in June and moved out by August. Word around the neighborhood was that she had burned too many bridges and could not stand living somewhere she was no longer in charge. Tom Prentice, who had become a friend through all this, came over for a beer after Patricia's moving truck left. We sat on my porch watching the new owners move in, a young couple with 2 kids who seemed friendly and normal. "Think they know what they are getting into?" Tom asked, gesturing at Patricia's old house with his beer bottle, with the neighborhood, or just that specific house. "Both. Linda is doing a good job. The HOA is way more reasonable now. Actual enforcement of actual rules, no petty retaliation or power trips." Tom nodded. "Patricia ran this place like a fiefdom. Good riddance. We clinked bottles, but the story does not quite end there. In September, I got a call from the Montana Department of Revenue. A very confused auditor named Janet wanted to ask me some questions about HOA finances. "Mr. Yates, we are conducting an audit of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association. Your name came up in relation to some discrepancies." "What kind of discrepancies?" Several $1,000s in HOA funds appear to be missing from last year. We found a contract for garage rental in your name, but the payments made to you do not match what was withdrawn from the HOA account." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Janet explained that the HOA had withdrawn $800 monthly from November through March as agreed. But I had only received payment for November and the final $1,600 makeup payment in January. That meant $4,800 had been withdrawn from HOA accounts, but only $2,400 had actually reached me. "Where did the other money go?" I asked. "That is what we are trying to determine. We are hoping you have records of all payments you received." I did. Bank statements showing deposits, copies of the checks, everything. I sent it all to Janet. A few weeks later, she called back. "Mr. Yates, thank you for your cooperation. Your records have been very helpful. It appears that Miss Patricia Thompson, the former HOA president, was embezzling funds. She wrote herself checks from the HOA account for the amounts that were supposed to go to you." "You are kidding." "I am not. She appears to have taken about $2,400 from this particular scheme, but we are finding other discrepancies too. Total looks like it might be over $15,000 across the past 2 years. What happens now? We are referring this to law enforcement for criminal investigation. You may be contacted by detectives." I was contacted 2 weeks later. Detective Sarah Kowalski from the Bozeman Police Department came to my house with a notebook full of questions. I told her everything, provided all my documentation, explained the whole timeline. "Miss Thompson has been quite busy," Detective Kowalski said. "We are building a case for embezzlement and theft. The HOA is cooperating fully now that Miss Thompson is no longer in charge. Will I need to testify? Possibly, if it goes to trial. But often these cases are resolved with plea agreements. Patricia was arrested in October. She had moved to Billings but was extradited back to Bozeman to face charges. The local news covered it because embezzlement by HOA board members was apparently rare enough to be newsworthy. Tom sent me the news link with a text. Karma is real." The legal process ground slowly forward. Patricia initially pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged signatures, withdrawn funds, testimony from multiple homeowners and vendors who had been shortchanged. Her attorney negotiated a plea deal in December. Patricia Thompson pleaded guilty to felony embezzlement and theft. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, and ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA and affected parties, including me. The judge was not gentle in the sentencing hearing. "Miss Thompson, you held a position of trust in your community, and you abused that trust systematically and repeatedly for personal gain. You stole from your neighbors, lied to cover it up, and then attempted to use the legal system to intimidate those who questioned you. This behavior is reprehensible." Patricia cried during sentencing, claiming she had been under financial stress and made mistakes. The judge was unmoved. Financial stress does not justify theft. You made deliberate choices to steal money that did not belong to you. You will serve your time and pay back every penny. I attended the sentencing hearing with Tom, Linda, and several other neighbors. It felt surreal watching someone I had lived near for years being led out of a courtroom in handcuffs. But mostly, it felt like justice. The restitution payments started coming in January of the following year. Patricia had to liquidate assets to pay everyone back. I received my full $2,400 plus interest. The HOA received the full amount she had stolen from various budgets and projects. Other vendors and contractors she had shortchanged were made whole. Linda Richardson continued as HOA president and did an excellent job. She implemented new financial controls, required dual signatures on all checks, and instituted quarterly audits by an independent accountant. The neighborhood actually started feeling like a community instead of a dictatorship. My garage went back to being just my garage. I eventually started parking my truck inside during winter, enjoying the heated space for myself. A few neighbors asked if I would rent spots, but I politely declined. Once was enough. The new couple who bought Patricia's old house, Mark and Jennifer Carlson, became good friends. They hosted a block party that summer, something Patricia would never have allowed because it would require people parking on the street and walking on grass. Everyone came. Kids played in sprinklers, adults grilled burgers and drank beer, and the neighborhood felt genuinely happy. Jennifer cornered me at one point during the party. "I heard stories about the previous owner of our house. Some of it sounds crazy." "It was crazy," I confirmed. "But it worked out." "Well, thanks for standing up to her. I think you made this neighborhood a better place," I shrugged. "I just wanted to get paid for my garage." Still, not everyone would have fought back. Most people would have just let her walk all over them. Maybe that was true. Patricia had ruled through intimidation and the assumption that no one would challenge her. Once someone did, her whole house of cards collapsed, revealing the fraud and theft underneath. My lawyer, Angela Morrison, stopped by the block party too. She had become a friend through the whole ordeal. "This is nice," she said, accepting a beer from Tom. "Normal neighborhoods do not usually involve this much litigation." "Is my neighborhood abnormal?" I asked. Was past tense. It seems pretty normal now. We laughed about the whole saga, the absurdity of it all. 4 luxury SUVs in my garage. An HOA president who thought she was above contracts and laws. A lawsuit over hurt feelings, and ultimately a criminal conviction for embezzlement. It sounded like a made-up story, but every bit of it had really happened. Officer Jenkins, the cop who had responded to the towing incident, was at the party too. He was friends with Tom and had heard how everything turned out. "I remember that call," he said when I reminded him. 4 screaming women and a guy with a stack of paperwork. I figured it was just a typical civil dispute, had no idea it would turn into a criminal case. "Neither did I said. "I just wanted my $800. "Well, you got it, plus entertainment value." That was one way to look at it. As summer turned to fall and then winter again, I found myself appreciating my home and neighborhood more than ever. The HOA operated smoothly under Linda's leadership. Dues were reasonable, rules were enforced fairly, and there was no drama or petty tyranny. I got a Christmas card from Patricia that December, forwarded from her old address to her current location at the Montana Women's Prison. It was a generic card with a snowy landscape and a handwritten note inside. "Peter, I know you probably do not want to hear from me. I have had a lot of time to think about my actions. I was wrong to treat you and others the way I did. I let power go to my head and made terrible choices. I hope you can forgive me someday. Patricia." I showed it to Tom. "Think she means it," he considered. "Maybe prison changes people. Or maybe she just wants to look remorseful for the parole board." Should I write back? "Do you want to?" I thought about it. The angry part of me, the part that had dealt with her harassment and lawsuit, wanted to ignore it. But the human part of me recognized that she was another person who had made mistakes and was paying for them. I wrote a short response. "Patricia, I appreciate your apology. I hope your time in prison leads to genuine change and growth. I do not hold grudges, but actions have consequences. I wish you the best in moving forward with your life. Peter." I mailed it and did not expect a response. I did not get one. Spring came again, bringing the annual HOA meeting and elections. Linda ran unopposed and won again. The meeting was boring in the best possible way. Budget approved, landscaping contracts renewed. No drama whatsoever. After the meeting, Linda pulled me aside. "I want to thank you again for everything last year. If you had not stood up to Patricia, who knows how long she would have kept stealing and bullying people. You are giving me too much credit. I just wanted rent money, still. You did not back down when she tried to intimidate you. That took guts. Or stubbornness." Linda smiled. "Sometimes they are the same thing." I went home that evening and sat in my garage, heat turned on against the cool spring night, and reflected on everything. The garage that had caused so much trouble was just a garage again. 4 empty parking spots, no drama, no luxury subs, no HOA board members demanding temperature adjustments. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, my lawyer friend who had advised me through the initial contract dispute. "Hey man, drinks this weekend. Want to hear how your HOA saga ended up?" I texted back. "Free Saturday. I will tell you everything." Saturday came and Marcus and I met at a brewery in downtown Bozeman. Over IPAs and burgers, I recounted the whole story from start to finish. The garage rental, the missed payments, the towing, the lawsuit, the embezzlement discovery, the criminal case, all of it. Marcus shook his head in amazement. "That is insane. All over $800 a month." That is what started it, but it became about principle. She thought she could just not pay me because she was HOA president, like the rules did not apply to her. Classic narcissist behavior. She probably got away with it for years with other people. Apparently she did, based on what the auditors found. Marcus raised his glass. "To standing up for yourself." We clinked glasses. A few months later, in July, I got notice that Patricia had been released on parole after serving 10 months of her sentence. She was required to continue making restitution payments and complete her probation terms, but she was out. I did not see her or hear from her, and I hoped it stayed that way. The neighborhood continued thriving. Tom organized a 4th of July party with fireworks. The Carlsons hosted a pool party at their house. Kids rode bikes up and down the street without parents worrying about HOA violations for chalk drawings on sidewalks. In August, Linda approached me with an interesting proposal. "The HOA has some surplus funds from dues we collected. We have been thinking about community improvements. I wondered if you would be interested in letting us install a community garden in that empty lot at the end of the street." "Why are you asking me? I do not own that lot." "No, but you were vocal about HOA overreach." "I want to make sure we are doing things that homeowners actually want, not just what the board thinks is best." "A community garden sounds great. Let people grow vegetables, flowers, whatever." Linda smiled. "Good. We will put it to a vote at the next meeting." The community garden was approved unanimously and installed that fall. Raised beds, a tool shed, a water system. Neighbors signed up for plots and started planning what they would grow in the spring. I signed up for a plot too. Figured I would try growing tomatoes and peppers. It was something Patricia never would have allowed because it was not aesthetically consistent or some nonsense. But under actual reasonable leadership, it became a reality. Winter came around again, my second winter since the whole garage fiasco. I parked my truck inside the heated garage and appreciated the warmth. Snow piled up outside, temperatures dropped below zero, and I stayed cozy. No one asked to rent space. No one demanded I keep the temperature at 65 degrees. No one threatened me with lawsuits or HOA violations. It was peaceful. One evening in December, I was working in my home office when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a woman I did not recognize, maybe mid-30s, professional looking. "Can I help you?" "Hi, my name is Rachel Torres. I am a reporter with the Bozeman Chronicle. I am working on a story about HOA abuse and corruption." Your name came up in my research. Would you be willing to talk about your experience? I hesitated. The whole thing felt behind me now. Did I really want to rehash it for a newspaper article? What is the story about specifically? I asked. I am investigating HOA boards across Montana that have abused their authority. Embezzlement, harassment, retaliation. Your case with Patricia Thompson is one of the most dramatic examples, but it is part of a larger pattern. That got my attention. Other HOAs are doing the same thing. Many. Some worse. I think your story could help shine a light on the problem and maybe push for better regulations and oversight. I invited her in. We talked for over 2 hours. I walked her through everything, provided documentation, gave her contact information for Linda, Tom, Angela Morrison, Detective Kowalski. Rachel was thorough and professional. The article ran in January, a full spread across 2 pages with photos and interviews. My story was featured prominently, but Rachel had found 6 other cases across Montana of HOA board members embezzling funds, retaliating against homeowners, and abusing their authority. Some were still ongoing. The article sparked discussions at the state legislature. Representatives started drafting bills to increase HOA transparency, require independent audits, and create better mechanisms for homeowners to challenge board decisions. It was slow-moving, typical legislative stuff, but it was progress. Patricia called me after the article ran. I almost did not answer the unknown number, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Peter, it is Patricia." Her voice was subdued, lacking the imperious tone I remembered. "I read the article. Okay. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. Not just the stealing, but the way I treated people. I am in therapy. I am trying to be better." "That is good, Patricia. I hope you succeed." There was a pause. "Do you think you will ever forgive me?" I considered the question. "I do not hold on to anger. What you did was wrong and you faced consequences. If you have genuinely changed, then good. But forgiveness is a process, not a light switch." "I understand. Thank you for talking to me." She hung up. I never heard from her again. Spring returned with the cycle of seasons. The community garden came to life with new plants. My tomatoes and peppers grew well. The neighborhood kids sold lemonade on the corner without anyone citing them for operating a business without permits. Tom retired that spring and threw a party to celebrate. Half the neighborhood showed up. We stood around his backyard, eating grilled chicken and potato salad, and it struck me how much things had changed in just over a year. "Remember when Patricia would have called the cops on a party this loud?" Tom said, reading my thoughts. "She probably would have measured decibel levels and issued fines," I replied. We laughed. It felt good to laugh about it now, with enough distance that the anger had faded into absurd humor. Linda Richardson came over with her husband Dave. "I have news," she announced. "I am stepping down as HOA president." Everyone protested immediately. Linda had been great, fair, and reasonable. "It is not bad news," she assured us. "Dave got a job offer in Seattle. We are moving this summer, but I am confident the neighborhood will be fine. You have good people here." "Who is going to run for president?" someone asked. Tom raised his hand. "I will, if you will have an old retired guy." "You have my vote," I said immediately. Others chimed in agreement. The election happened in May as scheduled. Tom won easily. His first act as president was to organize a neighborhood cleanup day where everyone pitched in to pick up litter, trim common areas, and paint the community sign at the entrance. It was collaborative and positive. Linda and Dave moved in July. We gave them a send-off party and thanked them for steering the HOA back to sanity. They promised to visit. August marked 2 years since Patricia had moved out. The couple who bought her house, Mark and Jennifer Carlson, had transformed it. New landscaping, fresh paint, welcoming energy. Their kids played with other neighborhood kids. It was a different house now, all traces of Patricia's reign erased. I was watering my garden plot one evening when Jennifer came by with her daughter Emma. "Emma wants to know if you could teach her about growing tomatoes," Jennifer said. "She is working on a gardening badge for Girl Scouts." "Sure," I said. "Come here, Emma, see these plants. The key is consistent watering and pinching off suckers." I spent 20 minutes teaching an 8-year-old about tomato plants. It was simple and wholesome. Patricia would have hated it because kids might step on grass or touch plants without permission. But that kind of thinking was gone now. Fall came with cooling temperatures and leaves changing color. Tom organized a Halloween party in the neighborhood common area. Kids trick or treated from house to house. Adults drank cider and chatted. It was community in the best sense. I carved pumpkins with the Carlson kids. We made a jack-o'-lantern with a funny face that sat on my porch for weeks. Simple pleasures that had been complicated or forbidden before. In November, I was doing some maintenance in my garage when I found an old paper tucked in a drawer. The original garage rental contract with Patricia's signature. I had forgotten about it, kept it out of habit or maybe as evidence if needed. I looked at it for a long moment, then fed it through my paper shredder. That chapter was over. No need to hold onto physical reminders. Winter settled in again, my third winter in the house. I parked my truck in the garage, turned on the heat, and felt grateful. Grateful for warmth, for a good home, for reasonable neighbors, for justice served. My phone rang one December morning. Detective Kowalski. I had not heard from her in over a year. "Peter, sorry to bother you. Just wanted to let you know that Patricia Thompson violated her parole terms. She was arrested again." "What happened?" "She was caught forging checks again, different victims this time. Small amounts, but it is the same pattern. Some people do not change. She is going back to prison." I felt sad more than angry. Patricia had been given a second chance and she had blown it. Some people really could not help themselves. "Thanks for letting me know," I said. "Figured you would want to hear. Take care." I told Tom the news later that day. He shook his head. "Leopards do not change their spots. She had a problem with honesty and authority. Prison time was not going to fix that. Think she will ever get it together? Maybe after she hits rock bottom hard enough. But that is not our problem anymore." He was right. Patricia Thompson was not my problem, not my responsibility, not my concern. She had exited my life and the neighborhood, leaving only lessons learned and stories to tell. The holidays came with snow and celebration. The neighborhood did a lights contest that Tom organized. Houses lit up with decorations. Kids voted on their favorites. Winners got gift cards to local restaurants. My house did not win, but I participated, stringing lights along the roof and around the garage. Christmas Eve, I hosted a small gathering. Tom and his wife, the Carlsons, a few other neighbors. We drank mulled wine and ate cookies and talked about the year. It had been good, quiet, uneventful in the best way. "To boring neighborhoods," Tom toasted. "To boring neighborhoods," we all echoed, clinking glasses. The new year arrived with hope and plans. The legislature passed an HOA reform bill that required annual independent audits for any association managing more than $100,000. It required transparent budgets and easier processes for homeowners to challenge board decisions. The bill was nicknamed the Thompson Act informally, though the official name was more bureaucratic. Rachel Torres, the reporter, wrote a follow-up article about the new law and credited the original story for spurring action. I got calls from a few homeowners in other neighborhoods thanking me for speaking out. It felt strange to be thanked for what had started as just wanting my rent money, but I accepted it graciously. Spring brought new life to the garden. My tomato plants from last year had left seeds that sprouted volunteers. I transplanted them and shared seedlings with neighbors. Emma Carlson took some for her own garden project. The neighborhood hummed along peacefully. Reasonable rules reasonably enforced. No petty tyrants, no embezzlement, no lawsuits. Just people living their lives, taking care of their homes, being good neighbors. I ran into Linda Richardson at the grocery store in April. She was back visiting friends in Bozeman. We caught up over coffee. "How is Seattle?" I asked. "Rainy." "Different, but good. How is the neighborhood?" "Boring. Tom is doing a great job. Everything is running smoothly," Linda smiled. Boring is good. Boring is what HOAs are supposed to be. Basic maintenance and reasonable rules. You taught us that. Patricia taught you that by being the opposite. We laughed. It was true in a twisted way. Patricia's extremism had shown everyone what not to do, what happened when power went unchecked. Summer came with long days and warm nights. The neighborhood thrived. Gardens flourished. Kids played. Adults relaxed. The HOA board met quarterly, approved budgets, arranged for landscaping services, and adjourned without drama. I was grilling in my backyard one July evening when Tom came over with beers. We sat on my deck watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of orange and purple. "You ever think about the whole Patricia situation?" Tom asked. "Sometimes. Mostly I am just glad it is over." "Me too. But I think about how close we came to it never being resolved. If you had not stood up to her, she would still be stealing and bullying people." "Someone would have eventually." "Maybe, but you were the one who did." I shrugged. "I just wanted my $800. Tom laughed. "Best $800 you never got." "I got it eventually, plus interest and legal fees from her." "True. How much total did she end up paying you?" I calculated in my head. "Original $2,400 plus $4,200 in legal fees, plus interest and costs. About $7,000. Not a bad return on standing your ground." We clinked bottles and watched the sky darken. The years rolled on. Patricia became a distant memory, a cautionary tale told to new homeowners. The neighborhood grew and changed. Young families moved in, older residents moved out. Life continued its natural cycle. I stayed, content in my home with my heated garage that housed only my own truck. The garage that had sparked a war had returned to peaceful utility. Sometimes I would stand in it on cold winter nights, feel the warmth from the radiant floors, and think about everything that had happened. 4 luxury SUVs parked in neat rows. An HOA president who thought she was above the law. A contract breach that revealed embezzlement. A lawsuit thrown out of court. A criminal conviction. Legal reforms that helped people across the state, all because I wanted rent money for my garage. Life is strange that way. Small things spiral into big things. Standing up for yourself inspires others. Demanding basic fairness reveals deeper corruption. I never regretted having those vehicles towed. It was the right thing to do, the necessary thing. Patricia counted on people backing down, accepting her authority, swallowing their complaints. When someone finally said no, her entire facade crumbled. The neighborhood learned from it. The HOA became what it was supposed to be, a boring administrative body that maintained common areas and enforced reasonable rules. No fiefdom, no petty tyranny, no theft. Tom served as president for years, eventually handing it off to Mark Carlson when Tom's health declined. Mark was fair and steady, maintaining the culture of reasonableness that Linda and Tom had rebuilt. I aged along with the neighborhood, watching Emma Carlson grow from a Girl Scout learning about tomatoes to a high school graduate heading to college. Time passed as it does. marked by seasons and cycles. My garage remained mine, heated and useful, a reminder that standing up for yourself matters. That contracts mean something. That authority has limits. That corruption cannot withstand sunlight. Patricia Thompson faded into obscurity, serving her sentences and disappearing from public record. I never knew what became of her after her second conviction. I did not care to know. She was a chapter closed, a problem solved, a tyrant dethroned. The neighborhood on Maple Ridge Drive in Bozeman, Montana thrived without her. Gardens grew, kids played, neighbors helped each other, and the HOA functioned as intended. And my garage, the garage that started it all, sat warm and peaceful through every winter, housing my truck and my memories of the time I stood up to an HOA president and won. That was enough. That was everything.